everyone, it's Allison back with another Arty party. Today we are going to be making a birthday chart out of clothespins. Now I think birthday charts are just really cute and my spouse has a really hard time remembering dates anyway, so this works out for both of us. A thing I ran into though looking for mass-produced or handmade birthday charts online is a lot of them are horizontal. And we don't have a ton of horizontal wall space. So I decided to make a vertical one out of clothespins. Now you don't have to make yours look exactly like mine. You can use different colors of paint. You can use a ribbon to hang yours. I actually used a dowel to have our clothespins attached to, and I got some wooden blocks that are just a little bit bigger than a clothespin, so that I could put double nail holes on the back of the top and the bottom. And I did that because we have cats and they like to swat the birthday chart. Now, if you don't have pets, or if they're slightly more respectful of your belongings, like I said, you can use a ribbon, you can use string, you can use anything. The great thing about spring-loaded clothespins is they will clip to anything. You can do whatever you like. And you can use whatever colors you want. What I'm going to be showing you is this faux wood burning technique. That's just with brown acrylic paint, because I feel like it goes with a lot of people's decor and it's fun but rustic all at the same time. So I'm going to set this aside just so it's not in our way, but I'm going to grab one of our clothespins so that you can see what we're doing. A really great thing about this too, the fact that we can have these guys grab onto everything, is it's really easy to add new birthdays when you need to. Like, we have a new niece that we need a clothespin for. So we're gonna make that. So what you're gonna need is some clothespins. Now you can find these at your local big box store or the dollar store. Just go find the laundry area. Now you do want the clothespins that have the wire springy part. The ones that just kind of slot onto the string, they don't work for this so well, unless you really want them to do that. But the flat sides on these really work a lot better for what we're going to do. Now, some of your clothespins might have some really rough spots, or there might be some broken parts in the wood. So, try to grab the ones in your package that are in better shape than others. We're going to use this one for what we're doing. So you want some clothespins. You want to make sure that you found the ones that, like, see, this one's kind of rough. You can always sand them, but grab the ones that are in good shape first. So you need some clothespins. You're also going to need, this is masking fluid. This is my favorite brand. Now you can use other things. This is liquid latex, and you're really only going to find it at the art store. It's meant for holding areas in watercolor. I happen to have it laying around because I like to paint. If you want to use something else, if you have a pretty light colored crayon or a plain wax crayon, those do exist. They're clear. That will do the same resist idea as this. Or you can get some masking fluid. Now, the kind I have, this brand, Gorham Barker, dyes theirs bright orange so you can see where it is. I love that. Some artists hate it. So masking fluid does come in a lot of colors. It also comes in plain white. Just make sure that you don't get the permanent white version, because that won't come off of your clothespins. It's okay if the crayon stays on, but the white masking fluid is really bright. It'll be really obvious. So I'm going to be using masking fluid with a dip pen. Again, I happen to have this guy hanging around. You don't really want to use a brush with masking fluid. Remember how I said it's liquid latex? That gets up in your brush and ruins it so fast. It just makes it a nasty, gummy mess. So for this project, if you're going to be using the liquid latex, I really recommend using a metal dip pen or a bamboo skewer. I love bamboo skewers. They're good for everything. Actually, if you have a metal barbecue skewer, that'll probably work too. If you have some floral wire hanging around or like some 18 gauge wire, not too chunky and not too thin, but because you want to be able to write with it, that should work fine. A tiny knitting needle, that would work too. Just something metal or wood that A, is not going to be used for food again unless it's metal, because then you can clean it easily. But that you can peel the masking fluid off of really easily. So you're going to need clothespin, you're going to need masking fluid or crayon in a subtle color. The color that they think matches my skin tone, that works with wood pretty well. Or sometimes a pale, sometimes the white crayon works okay. But if you have those clear crayons, those are the best. So clothespin, dip pen, you want your masking fluid, and you want some acrylic paint. You can use any color you want. I'm going to be using brown to get that faux wood burnt look. And then you're just going to need a brush and a little bit of water because we do need to thin the paint a little bit. You might also want, not entirely necessary, but you might also want to have a, this is a rubber cement lifter, but it also works for the masking fluid. It just helps it peel up easier. You can use it, your finger, and just rub it off when we're done. You don't have to have this, I just have it handy. So to get started, I'm gonna shake up my masking fluid so that it actually has some orange in it. This is my drip bottle so that I'm not opening that giant jar every time I want some masking fluid. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of this, and now this stuff is sticky and it will totally sink into your clothes or the carpet, so try not to spill it. You'll have a rubbery area. It's kind of gross. Have I done this? Yes. So you're gonna take your dip pen and get just a little bit of masking fluid on there. Now I like this particular size of dip pen for what we're doing, or this size of skewer, because it holds just enough of the masking fluid and makes a good size letter for what we're doing. All right, so now I am going to write. So my new niece's name is Ada Gray, and her birthday is March 16th. So I'm gonna do, and you're probably not gonna see this very well on the camera, but I am gently writing M. I'm just putting some masking fluid on here. Do M-A, oh, you know what? I made that M way too big. So we're gonna wait a second on that. I'm gonna write, I'm gonna get a better idea of where this needs to go. So we're gonna do 1 and 6. Now sometimes going around a curve is hard with masking fluid because it wants to smear and stick to itself. So you probably want to do a number like a 6 and a couple of little stages. So you can see, if I hold it up here, that focus for a minute, you can kind of see there's now a 16 on there. That M, I made it a little wonky, so I'm gonna start that over. Oh, you're probably also gonna wanna have a paper towel so you can wipe off the masking fluid. You can do it with your fingers, but you end up with this weird, like, ew, booger ball. It's kind of gross. So I am going to blot off the M that I don't want and use my remover to make sure I got all of that out of the wood. Let's try that M-A-R again. So the style I used was to do just the first 3 letters of the month and then the date. Then the day, because that fits really well in this space. So let's see. Oh, this is much better. When the first leg of your M gets a little weird. Now there is grain in the wood, so it might try to send your writing utensil in a weird direction. Still not sure I've got enough room for all my letters here. See, it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to correct them. Let's do, wipe that off. I think that 1 on my 16 is also going to be a little too close. So let's rub those off and try again. So it's okay to keep trying again. This part's a little harder because you can't see what you're doing as well. It's a lot easier when we get to the painted part, trust me. And it's a lot easier to do some watery paint with this pen than it is to, oop, that didn't work. It's a lot easier to do watery paint with this pen than it is to do it with a paintbrush. Let's decide where both legs of our M are going. That'll make my life easier. Now if you don't feel like you got enough masking fluid on the first time, you can always grab a little more and go tap, tap, tap down the line you just made. That will help add more without making any weird, now this is liquid latex, you can get rubber strings. For lack of a better way to describe it, it's kind of like the stringy cheese on a very hot pizza. Only then the strings go places and they'll block the paint in places you don't want it to be blocked. So we're kind of tapping this on. I'm gonna move that skewer over, I keep whacking it. So got our M, we're gonna do an A. You can see I'm only trying to do each letter only going in one direction. With dip pens, it's best to do that because they also can catch on the metal can catch on the grain of the wood and make a splatter. And that can happen with the paint or the masking fluid. So you just kind of want to be careful about that. I got that, and the legs of my M are dry, so I can add the middle part, and we can add the 1 of our 16 back in, a little closer to the 6 this time. So now, if I bring it up here, you can see it says March 16th, so that'll be all we need for that. While that's drying, we are going to get Ada Gray's name on here. So we need a tiny bit of paint. You really don't need a lot. So I'm just going to use a little bit of, and thin paint is okay in this case. So just a little craft paint. Ooh, doesn't want to come out. Come on, you. Just a little bit. Why don't you like me? There we go. That should do it. That was all we needed. So we just need a tiny bit of paint because I'm only doing one of these right now. And I definitely want some water. So I'm going to grab some nice clean water from my jar and we're going to mix it up so that the paint is a little bit watery. It might have been a little too much water. If there's too much water in your paint, it is going to make your letters bleed out a little bit on the wood grain. So if you feel like you got a little too much water, add a little more paint. That'll just make your letters look a little tidier. Doop, doop, doop. Don't want it too wet, so yeah, that's a much better consistency. Kind of want it to be like pudding. Right. Let's put that away for now. We will need the brush in a minute, but not yet. So now we are gonna do, actually, I forgot, the really easy way to do this is to take your brush, get a little bit of paint on there. You can actually take your pen and scoop a little bit of paint onto the back side because that's where the little reservoir lives. I'm going to scoop a little bit of that on there. And now we're going to get Ada's name on here. And feel free, you're definitely going to want to practice a few times. So take a few of the clothespins that don't look so great. Like they've got, I've got a few that have like, you know, they were just manufactured funny. They've got chunks missing, or they've got like a big marker, a big knot or line on them or something. Take one of those and, or a couple of those, and practice how you want to do your writing for each of these. I've had a lot of practice because I did that whole other one. Doot. This might actually be a little too thick. I might need a little more water. We'll get some of the paint from the edge where I had a little more water in it. Scoop that up. You'll know. It'll feel right or wrong while you're working with it, but if it is too watery, it will kind of spread while you're working. It's okay if your letters aren't perfect, or if they're just not quite the right proportion. That is totally okay. Adds to charm, right? But if you do want them to be just perfect, you know, you can always do it over again. I think I'm getting my groove. Again, it's going to be a little difficult to write like you usually do because of the metal nib and because you're working with paint. It might splatter. So to do the G, I'm actually going to do the G in a couple of chunks. Doop, 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 doop. A little more paint there. Like I said, it might take a little practice to get used to writing with paint on wood, but when you do, you get into a groove, and you will have a really cute way of showing off birthdays. What did I do wise on there? Did it that way. I usually do really strange wise, so I have to keep track of what I'm doing for this project. Fortunately, I do have a couple of other family members with Y's in their names, so I just had to look at what I did before. All right, so I'm gonna add a little bit right here. My paint was a little thin to get that matched up. Straighten that out. It looks pretty good. So now we've got Ada Gray, which I think is such a pretty name. And you can see the masking fluid has all dried, and it's just kind of a weird, funny, pale orange thing on the wood right here. So now we're gonna do that part of the clothespin. And you do want to make sure that you clean whatever tool you've been using really well. Make sure you get all of the water and paint and masking fluid out of it, because otherwise it'll degrade. If you're using a metal tool, it'll degrade it. If you are using a wooden tool, I mean, you can just throw it away, but if you're using metal, make sure you clean it really good. All right, so in this case, we do kind of want some wet watery paint because that'll look more like wood burning and wood stain. So we're kind of going to get some of this on our brush. And you're going to want to be a little careful here if you don't want it smearing down the edge. So what I like to do is brush off the edge all the way down like this. Really careful right here on that edge. And then I'm going to go flip it around and brush over the edge the other way. And then I'm going to gently brush over the edge right here. So now we've got that covered, but it's pretty dark. So what you want to do is rinse your brush off, or you can get a wet paper towel or a wet tissue. That works pretty good too. Gonna get that nice and clean, and you're gonna kind of wipe off some of the paint. This will also, especially if you're using a crayon, but definitely if you're using masking fluid, you can see we're starting to see the resist under the paint. So you just kind of want to wipe some of it off, just so it looks kind of uneven, a little bit rustic. You can have a little fun with this. At least this is how I like it. If you want it solid, go for it. Oh, I really got a lot of paint on it this time. Right, we're gonna let that. There we go. I'm gonna add a little bit more back in right here. Took a little off, a little too much off. All right. Might have gone overboard altogether. Oh, and now I've blotted too much off. Let's just stain that. This is the other option. You just take really watered down paint and yeah, wipe it on there. So either way works. And then you're going to let it dry for a little bit. And we'll check back in with our project in just a second. All right, so our paint has dried on here. You can see we've got our resisted area that is kind of orange still, and it says March 16th. We've got Ada Gray on here. Now, if you're making a whole bunch of these at once, you can just do your masking fluid on a bunch of them, and then go along and write names on a bunch of them, and then go along and paint a bunch of them, and they'll all be drying at about the same rate, so you can just keep working. So there won't be that big pause that we just had. Now, to get the masking fluid off, you can either rub it with your finger, you can just kind of peel it off, or you can, like I said, use one of these rubber cement erasers. And I'm going to try not to rub because it's still, sometimes you can smudge the paint into the letter, and you really don't want that. So really you want to kind of squish and lift, or get your fingernail under there and rip it off. But you can see this just sticks to the masking fluid and peels it off, and now we have really nice white blank letters that look like I magically did not include them in some wood burning. Each one I just kind of peel, get my remover stuck to the masking fluid, and it just peels off. So now I have a whole new paper clip. I have a whole new clothespin for Ada Gray's birthday to add to my birthday chart. And like I said, you can do this with any colors. I just like this wood burn look. You can hang them in any way. Strings, ribbons. I used a dowel because, like I said, I have some very rude cats that like to swat everything on the walls. Just use your imagination. Have a lot of fun with it. But it's a really inexpensive and fun way to have an endlessly addable and rearrangeable birthday chart so that if you're like my husband and you can't remember birthdays, all you have to do is look at the wall every day and go, oh, hey, my mom's birthday is coming up. So thank you so much for joining me. I want to see your birthday charts. You can find us at Marietta Cobb artmuseum.org. And from there, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Twitter, you can find us on Instagram, and I want to see what you make. So please show me your creations. Again, I'm Allison, and I will see you next time for another fun Arty party. Thank you.